So this is our moon phase diagram. This is something that's required when you take your test, but this is a way to create kind of all your information about a moon phases in one place that you can use later on in questions, and it gives you anything you need to know from picture, name, to predicting what would come next. So I'm going to show you how to do this in a step-by-step process. We always start with that top line where we're showing the moon phases in the order that they start with. So I'm going to start from the left side. At the top, I'm going to write how much light can be seen from Earth. So how much of the face do we see? So in this case, I start out at 0% seen. We go to 25%, 50%, 75%, and then when we see the entire moon face, we're at 100%. After the time we go back down again, we make small changes at a time until we get back to the beginning. Again, we don't have two moons that are at 0. It's just showing that we return to the start because it's a cycle. It's a process that happens over a month. So now I'm going to shade in what the moon would look like as it appears from Earth. When we start out, what I'm shading in is what would be dark. It wouldn't be seen from Earth. You're only seeing the white part of the paper, the white part of the moon, the background. And we always start from the right side. So the moon starts off with light growing from the right. It gets bigger. Again, more changes. Once we get to the full moon or at 100%, everything flips. So we have the same shape. The difference is that now light has left the building. It's going away. So the moon, the face we can see, the illuminated portion is now on the left side. So it's like a mirror image after you hit the full moon. I don't color this very pretty. You don't have to either. So now, again, we get back to the new moon, which we don't have it twice. We're just showing that it's a cycle. So as a reminder, we put it on the end to repeat the process. When we're talking about the moon, that beginning portion is called the waxing phases because light is growing from the right side. So everything over here is waxing. And everything following the full moon is waning because light is on the left. When we start off, the light is on the right side, so we need to make sure to make that flip. And that's one of the hardest things about drawing the moon phases is we don't always make that change. So now I'm going to give you the moon phase names that go with each one. So when we start off, when we're brand new, we start off with the new moon. The opposite of the new moon is when it's 100% illuminated, when werewolves come out, which is the full moon. Now, again, my last phase is not another new moon. It's just saying we're repeating the process going back to the beginning since it's a cycle. Our three phases in between have to do with kind of the shape of the light. So the easiest to remember is this one that's at 50%. We call these the quarter moons. Between the new and full, this would be the first quarter. The one that's 50% but light on the left would be the third quarter. We might also hear it referred to as last quarter moon. Again, there's only two, so if it's not the first one, it would be the last quarter. Now we have the two shapes here that are the easiest to confuse. The little C shape or the banana shape, that would be our crescent shaped moon versus the one that's kind of like a lopsided circle, almost there. That would be our gibbous shape. It's the bigger of the shapes, and if you do gibbous, big backwards, or it spells big backwards. So here I have the crescent moon. And on this side, where light is increasing, light is on the right, this would be the waxing crescent. Again, when I go over to this lopsided circle, I'm going to write it at the top because I don't have enough room. This is the gibbous shape, again, G-I-B. Well, that spells big backwards, so it's the bigger. It's almost a full. Because light is still on the right side and we're increasing light, this is the waxing gibbous. I get to the full moon. Again, everything flip-flops. So we saw the light is now on the left side. So the shape remains the same. The title for the shape remains the same. Now, instead of it being waxing, we're to the waning gibbous. So we still have 75% light at gibbous. And instead, this is the waning gibbous. We get to the third quarter, and then we're almost completely dark again, but we have a little sliver left. This is still our crescent shape. But this is the waning crescents. So now you have your moons in order here. Okay, they're in order from 0 amount up to 100 back down to 0 where we start again. Now, this is how we perceive the moon from Earth. At the bottom, what I'm going to show you is where we would see these moons if they were out in space. Okay, so the first thing we need to do when we see something out is we need to use 4 letters. SNEF, S-N-E-F, and that stands for a part of the Earth. So S stands for sun, the E stands for Earth, and then the N and the F help us to set up or find where our new moon and our full moon will be located. So when you write this out, you make them a straight line. They're going to all go together. S for sun, N for new moon, F for full moon. So whenever you see a picture, not the actual phase itself, but the location, always start with labeling SNEF. The next thing you should label is that just like the Earth goes around the sun counterclockwise, the moon goes around the Earth counterclockwise. And this is going to be important for us to do directions. So we know, again, we know our order, so we can place these moon phases in that order. Okay? Now, once I've added the moon phases, I might add first and third, but the more important thing to do, I think, is to take our moons at the top and put them in order around the sun. So, the new moon, I have my moons up here at the first, second, then third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and this is not the ninth moon, this is back to moon number 1. I put them in order around the sun, equally spacing them. So my new moon would be my first moon, as seen up here. My second moon. Then I get to my third moon, which would be my first quarter. So I'm going to make that even. Fourth moon. Full moon is my fifth. Sixth. Seventh as my third quarter. 8. And again, back to moon number 1. So instead of redrawing the moons around the sun, I don't need to. I have them up here. What I can say is that the moon here, if it was ever placed here, happens to correspond to the waxing crescent because that's my second moon in order. It might help to remember that that's why we label it as going counterclockwise, so that we know where to place the first and third quarter. This will always be true. It always goes counterclockwise, and this diagram is always there to help make sure that you have the moon phases in the correct order. The last thing that we want to add to our moon phase diagram is predicting the moon. So again, these go in order, but we want to make sure that we understand how long does it take to go the entire process. To go start at new moon and to go all the way back to new moon. So to go through the entire revolution of the moon around the sun, which is 8 phases, takes around 28 days. In general, we'll use the term it takes about a month. It's not exact, but it takes about 28 days, or we know that as 4 weeks. So to go the entire way from new moon back to new moon, or say full moon back to full moon, where you make an entire revolution around the Earth, which is 8 phases, then that takes about 28 days. Now, if I only have to go halfway, or 4 phases, let's say from new moon 1, 2, 3, 4 back to the full moon, this is going to take about half the time. which is about 14 days or 2 weeks. If I'm only skipping, let's say, 2 phases, I'm only going a quarter of the way around, say from new moon to first quarter, which is about 2 phases, so 1, 2. It takes half the time again, which is 7 days or 1 week. If I'm only seeing, okay, I see the new moon today, when will I see the next immediate moon, which is waxing crescent or moving only 1 phase? It still is half the time, so it takes about 3 to 4 days before I'm going to see the full change. Now, it changes slightly every day because it is a cycle, but you may not know the difference between 0% of the moon illuminated and 1%. It's probably pretty hard to see that from Earth. So I'm going to explain how I use this timeline over here and use my moon as a timeline. So let's say I start at the first quarter moon, and I want to know how long does it take to get to the third quarter moon. So I use it as kind of a number line. I start at the first quarter. I'm going to move over 1, 2, 3, 4 moons. You count not where you start, but how many moons you change. That's 4 phases. So to get from first to third quarter, which is about halfway, 4 phases, it takes 14 days or 2 weeks. Now, if I was saying going from first quarter to new moon, okay? So if I'm going from first quarter to new moon, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phases. Okay, so I went 6 phases. That's more than 4, but not quite all the way around. So with every 2 phases taking 7 days or a week, I went 1, 2, that's 7 days, 3, 4, 14 days, 5, 6, 21 days. So it takes about 21 days or 3 weeks to go 3/4 of the way around. It kind of is also helpful to think of your moon phases as like a quadrant. So each quadrant is about 7 days, whereas each individual moon phase is 3 to 4 because you're splitting it in half. So again, the whole process taking about 1 month or 28 days, whereas an individual change in moon from one phase to the next takes about 3 to 4. So when you're completing your moon phase diagram, this is what you should include on there so that you can make sure that you have everything you need to answer those questions.